you cry to the press on air. I just wanna play your game, but we don't get treated the same. Wall Street's breaking down. Wall Street's freaking out. Wall Street's been around. It's time we shut them down. Wall Street's breaking down. Wall Street's freaking out. Wall Street's been around. It's time we shut them down.
You were told to come alone. Joe said if you vote for him, he'll abdicate his throne as the father of the crime bill, soul of Jim Crow. Proud to live and vote as a Strom Thurmond clone. If he tried to kiss your daughter with a camera rolling, he'll try more than kissing her alone. Cozy up with Jill for a photo like a portrait of the Kissingers at home. You know I hate to kill the messenger, but if he's gotta go, we can FaceTime. Slit his throat while he stares into the phone. Like if you don't know, kitten, now you know. This is where austerity has gotten us. This is all that palpable excitement for a 20-year wait on forgiveness for your student loans. But a distraction's a distraction and it's time to see some action, so here's one last song for Joe. Before I try to keep his name out of the lyrics in my phone, try to shift the focus to our senators and everyone in Congress who is all too happy to be hidden while we're wasted to the bone. It is not food insecure, it's starvation, and it lurks in almost half the country's homes. So if you plan to lay down, hold your nose and vote for Joe, have the guts to admit that you chose to submit and that you decided lending your support to a pedophile must be a step towards hope. Then a vote for a man that spent his whole life implementing laws that dehumanized people of color is a vote against fascism. When you know damn well he's just a kinder, dumber face on the same white nationalism. So baby, throw away your scruples with the memories of your activism. Watch your weak resistance usher in a fucking cataclysm. Elect a bigot war pig and say you're gonna push him into pacifism. That's some bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. Baby, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. God, that's some fucking bootlicker Stockholm hostage liberal masochism. That's some fucking...
This here's a song about the great glory of America. As you, USA, fuck the Constitution. We can't give you any money cause we spent it on bombs. As you, USA, fuck the Constitution. Privatize all life on the earth and you're polluted. Some genocide look at you hard. So fuck you. You kind of deserve it.
You know, sir, I like you much better with my glasses off.
I guess I was born with the curse of foresight. Cause I knew Joe was only gonna represent the war side. And that said, I just came to fight. You could keep the ore flight. Save the surprise and the gasp when the shadow of the fascists have cast is on your doorstep in the glow of your porch light. Save the surprise when the grid goes down and we go underground to lick wounds in the gloom of a torchlight. While up in the sky, a blimp glides by with a sign like New Year's 2022. Brought to you jointly by Pfizer and Coors Light. While the centrists observe from a comfortable courtside, right in the thick of the action behind a partition. We're in a morbid position, a plague of evictions, born a comorbid condition of the cancer of wealth. I fantasize that I cancel myself, hands on your head, throw your best laid plans in the well. There are no more answers, questions go back on the shelf. All Joe's donors, a quick show of hands. How many of you sub to the Lockheed Martin OnlyFans? How many are loyalist patrons for the Raytheon Patreon? Occupy Iraq and send $1 million off into the great beyond. Cool yourself with the safety on. True to yourself in as much as you dutifully spew out a mucus of QAnon. You can't convince me the Capitol wasn't surrendered with every intention of digging us deeper down into the treacherous webbing of censorship, ebbing your speech and dissension so you can't hold Biden accountable. Not in his mentions and not in the streets. No to the end that Joe will defend the elite. Joe won't embarrass McConnell, but Joe's not embarrassed if all of your children are hungry and weak. Too hungry to speak. Too hungry to stay and they just lie at his feet. Joe is fresh out of empathy, fresh out of policy, but he'd love to know, what was your favorite ice cream flavor to eat? Back when you used to eat. I guess the road isn't rocky for people who thought we were free. They'll believe what they read and Joe's here to lull them to sleep. Counting us down by the dozens, the culling of gullible sheep, led to the slaughter by media tyrants and government thieves. These are the leeches that stubbornly suck where there's nothing to bleed. These are the tumors that force us to crawl on our knees. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free. One was foreclosed in 08. One was condemned in 16. This is the home of the brave. This is the land of the free.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Indie News on the Indie News Network. I've got Collin with me this week, as well as Robert Durden, aka Robert Buckner of Political Fight Club. What's up, guys?
Good. How you doing, Reef?
Pretty good, man. I have to. We got Ricky Rants in the chat. Indie Left's here. You know, make sure y'all go ahead and retweet all those things with the video link in there. That would be great. You should see him around. Just spam that to everyone you know. But otherwise, we got a bunch of news for you today. At least 4. That's a bunch, right? 4 stories. You know, it took us long enough to like get it together. How long I sat there, Collin, and got stuff like me and you, like got. It was a minute.
It's definitely a lot shorter than last week, considering that was the first episode, and I actually helped out more this time.
Yes, you did.
Which you appreciated. Because I actually kind of knew what to do once I got everything together. But it was a lot shorter.
Yep.
So.
Yep. It goes pretty quick once you get it together. Mainly, it's finding the stories that you have to like go and grab and. All that fun stuff, but I'm getting it queued up in my other monitor here, ready to go. Next week, I'm hoping to have Chris Legion and Angel joining us, I think. And a week after that, I'm hoping to get Lucy and Tara to come on and do stuff. So should be good stuff. Everyone should tune in when those happen. I don't know what we're gonna cover, but we're gonna pick that news fresh right off the vine. But anyway, I got Collin's story here ready to go. Let me go to presentation, give you guys the right monitor to look at, right? And we're good to go. So this is about the Biden administration expected to extend the payment pause for student loan borrowers through August. And Collin got
confirmed.
this.
Yeah, it's confirmed as well. There were murmurs that Biden was going to announce formally today that it's going to be extended, and it has. So shout out to Indy's daughter for showing exactly how I felt yesterday when I found out about this.
I'll press the button on it. Play. 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 Why you no play? Hello? Chrome? What's going on? Why you do this, Chrome?
There we go.
That's what it is.
Yeah, kicking the can down the road. For the 3rd time now.
Yep, 3rd time.
3rd or 4th. Yeah. So. So I don't mind reading the article.
Sorry,
go
ahead.
I don't mind reading this, Reef.
Okay.
Just to give you a break.
I got you.
From last week.
No worries.
So the Biden administration plans to announce another extension to the payment pause for the federal student loan borrowers, sources tell CNBC. The pause is likely to last through August, so it's confirmed it will. This will be the 6th extension of the break, which has now spanned 2 presidencies. Currently, the pandemic era relief policy suspended student loan bills is scheduled to lapse in May. Former President Donald Trump first announced a stay on bills for the millions of Americans with education debt in March 2020, when the coronavirus pandemic brought the U.S. economy to its knees and joblessness soared. Nearly all borrowers eligible for the pause have used it, with just around 1% of them to continue to pay, according to analysis by higher education expert Mark Kranowitz. The country has emerged from the darkest days of the pandemic, and the unemployment rate has come back down. Yet the Biden administration has expressed reluctance to resume the payments before it makes a decision on student loan forgiveness. The president is going to look at what we should do on student debt before the pause expires, or he'll extend the pause, White House Chief of Staff Ron Klain said last month on the podcast Pod Save America. Joe Biden right now is the only president in history when no one's paid on their student loans for the entirety of his presidency, Klain said. Democrats and advocates have warned that resuming the payments after more than 2 years could have signaled to some that Biden was turning away from his vow to forgive at least $10,000 in student debt for all, leading to damaged headlines and lower turnout at the polls come November. President Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Elizabeth Warren are pushing the president to cancel closer to $50,000 per borrower. Nearly 66% of likely voters are in support of the president favoring student debt, with more than 70% of Latino and Black voters in favor, a recent poll found. Even prior to the public health crisis, student loans were a major challenge for many households. Outside of education, it exceeds 1.7 trillion, burdening families more than auto or credit card debt. Some 40 million people in the US have loans from their schooling, and more than a quarter are just past due. Yet Scott Buchanan, executive director of the Student Loan Servicing Alliance, a trade group for federal student loan services, warned that the repeated extensions will cause their own issues for the lending system. What's a borrower to believe or plan for anymore when the government keeps changing its mind, Buchanan said. When the inevitable resumption does finally happen, millions of borrowers will likely miss it and go delinquent because of the false expectations the government is now setting. So in response to that, AOC, who I normally have some things to say to her, actually brought up a good point yesterday on Twitter. And she tweeted, I think some folks read these extensions as savvy politics, but I don't think those folks understand the panic and disorder it causes people to get so close to these deadlines just to extend the uncertainty. It doesn't have the effect people think it does. We should cancel them.
Yep.
I think there's
Next
another
one.
slide.
Yep.
Yep. I've had so many people asking me, my payments are X $100,000 a month. What do you think is going to happen in May? I need to make sure I delay X medical procedure or prescription / sell my car / make X huge change to prepare. The limbo and uncertainty is also a strain. So yeah, I mean, we knew he was going to do this. We expected he was going to do, at least I expected him to do this. I just think it's kind of funny, and I tweeted this out yesterday, that considering how Biden and a lot of the Democrats are kind of saying, oh, the economy is doing well, people are getting jobs, that they decided to continue to extend the student loan payments, which,
Yeah.
I mean, I just feel like they're just kind of stuck at this point because, you know, I'm sure that they realize that it's going to get a lot of backlash, you know, from millennials and Gen Z in particular. But I think it's just kind of ironic to say that the economy is doing well, that they continue to extend these payments. So, I mean, you know, and I'm also just kind of like, you know, you could just easily cancel it, you know,
Yeah.
or if you're willing to do, if you're worried about midterms, at least kind of prolong it to at least the end of the year.
Well, and both of you were on Lucy's cancel student debt summit, right? When was that? That was like a month and change ago.
That was back in a few months back.
Yeah. And you know, everyone was saying pretty much the same things then. Was that you should just cancel it? It's you know, but I'm interested to get your take so far, Rob.
Yeah, if you think that the economy is doing well, which they have said that it is, it's not really, but they often would say that we can't forgive student loans because of the economy. You know, that's it's going to hurt the economy. Where we've argued that no, it would be an economic boon for all of these millennials and even, you know, younger Gen Xers and certainly Gen Z were completely unleashed to spend more money because they're not having to keep up with a couple $100 extra a month going towards these payments. So they say that the economy is doing well right now. These student loan payments have been frozen for what, 2 years now? You know, it's been about 2 years, I believe, maybe over 2 years. So of course that means that the rhetoric that they had before has fallen apart. In fact, it isn't the end of the world if we aren't in fact paying these back. So, but even further than that, people are still not unleashed if they know that, you know, 2 months down the line or 4 months down the line, they're going to have to keep up with their payments. So a lot of times, rather than them taking that extra money, which is now freed up, and putting it into the economy, they're just saving it for loan payments that they expect in the future. So if you want the true economic stimulus that would be forgiving this forever, you have to forgive it forever. You can't keep kicking the can down the road. And secondly, I'd like to just I love that what AOC actually said, and I don't agree with her very often, but she's poignant here, saying that it's anxiety and fear of having these things kick back in is emotionally traumatizing for people, because they know that they eventually are going to have to, deal with this financially somehow. So it never really unburdens them. And that's a kind of a traumatizing thing to do to people. She's right. She's right there. And I know that myself, like nothing takes the wind out of my sails more than getting a note from one of my private loan companies that now owns my debt for chiropractic school. And it says, oh, well, when your loans kick back in next month, we're going to need $5,000 a month for this next year. And I'm like, bro, I'm about to have a panic attack just because of that. And I always defer, forbear, or whatever, but still it's this thing that I always feel like I have to deal with. And it's emotionally traumatizing, because I don't think I'll ever get out from under that stuff unless, we hope that Joe Biden does something that he promised, not that would fix all my loan debt, but let's say that he just did what he promised, $10,000. That would settle a lot of people up. It would really help a lot of people that don't have, a ton, hundreds of thousands of student loan debts like I do. So, kudos to AOC. The only caveat, or the problem I guess I have with her tweet, is that she didn't specifically call Joe Biden out and say the obvious solution, which is Joe Biden can use the Higher Education Act of 1965, Section 432A, to forgive all student loans, federal student loans. And once those get forgiven, private student loans would come shortly thereafter. So I wish she would just be a little more direct. She's right on substance, but calling out Joe Biden publicly and saying specifically how he could do it would be the correct tweet.
Well, to me, as we head towards midterms, the strongly worded tweet will be, out more in force.
They're already, you can already see it.
They're looking for issues that people were willing to vote for them and their constituency, like, their other allies to go with. And if it's safe enough for them to call out right now without calling out the actual administration, they're going to, so like we're seeing that a lot with Bernie, with all of them right now, but anyway, we have more of this. So let's go to friend of the show, Afeni, right? You want me to just play the clip and let it speak for itself?
All
right.
And we also support 80% of the black households in America, solely or mainly. So when we're talking about cancellation of student loan debt, we're talking about radically thinking about what it looks like to put financial power back into black people's hands. That generational tax that goes from mother to daughter, mother to son, we want that gone. So we're asking Joe Biden to pick up that pen, just like he picked up the pen and flicked it to sign the 90th on full crime bill, just like he picked that pen up and flicked it for the Hyde Amendment, just like he picked it up and flicked it to mass incarcerate all the black and brown people in this fucking country. Then that means they can pick up the goddamn pen and fucking cancel the student loan debt.
God damn, girl. Oh, she kills.
Yeah, she's extremely powerful.
Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that I think especially like Democrats are not going to say this, but I think like the squad keeps saying, oh, you should cancel student debt. You should cancel student debt. They never ever say that Joe Biden was the architect of why we cannot, you cannot declare student loan debt as part of bankruptcy. They never ever say that. So it's just like, you say a half truth as far as, he should cancel it, but he's the cause why people cannot get out of it. And I wish they would do that.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly right. And that's virtue signaling in a nutshell. If you're just going out there and saying student loan debt is bad and it should be forgiven, but you don't come up with like a solution or call someone out that can actually bring about what you're talking about, then you're just, virtue signaling. And that's the most frustrating thing about the squad, man. That's all they do. They get paid $174,000 a year to do that, which works out, by the way, I did the math, that works out to like about $1 per virtue signaling tweet each one of them makes per year.
Yeah. I mean, and how much do you think they promote their own tweets anyway? Just to counteract that, like, just to waste more money, But,
yeah.
We got more to this, I think. Why does it always go back to
I
like
think that's
play it
it.
again? That's it for this one? Cool.
I think that's it for that one.
But yeah, no, fucking just get rid of student debt already. Like, I don't get it. I don't get why
It's
we have
the
to
easiest
keep
thing in the
yelling
world,
the
and
same things.
Even Republicans are on board for it. So it's one of those things where Republican voters and Democratic voters are all on board for it,
Right.
especially younger people. The only people that seem to be against this are basically the companies that own private debt, which of course they're against because they know that they'll lose their grift if Biden forgives all the federal student loans. And then the elitists who, they profit off of the industry as well. And they don't have this as a problem because, as Jay Buffont from RBN so eloquently said, rich people don't have student loan debt. So they don't care about that. And that's exactly who's making all of the laws and, pulling all the levers.
Yeah.
Doesn't affect them personally. Never will.
I've never had a argument with a right-wing Republican or anyone that didn't agree that public funding of schools should be there, right? Like,
yeah, you get the occasional like really old person that's like, well, I paid off my student debts, and I'm like, yeah, but you graduated in 1976 when going to school for 4 years cost like
was
$400.
a summer's worth of like work, Yeah,
it's not the same thing. Like if we had like a lot of these Scandinavian countries don't technically have like free college. It's just so unbelievably affordable that like you go for like a semester and all you have to pay for is like your textbooks or something. And if that were all that we were dealing with in this country, nobody would really be up in arms about it. But I graduated with $232,000 worth of student loan debt when I got my doctorate. And I would have to work 2 lifetimes full time to even get close to paying that off. And I don't plan on living to be 200 years old.
Yeah. I mean, it's and I was always under the threshold where I couldn't afford assistance, right? My parents made just enough to where like, they would have to fork that money out every time. And it's like, a lot of people can't continue to play that like game of being that close to the edge of shit where, there's times where I couldn't have afforded to go, depending on like what jobs looked like. So while that Germany is able to, if you can go over there, if you can afford to travel, right, is willing to, fork out for your education themselves, right? Like, or there's a few foreign places now that have that sort of like thing in place, Yeah.
I mean, Sabi talked about this on several streams, but like, if you're able to go abroad for college, that's usually a cheaper option because typically, you're going for 3 years instead of 4. So that knocks out a year. But the only thing is, usually here, the first year is like trying to figure out what you want to do versus like by the time you get to university, like overseas, what you're going to do. So that just kind of takes away. You can basically start like within your major of study where you want to go into.
Right. And that's what I said about the UK system forever was like, even their high school starts educating differently because they're not trying to get you to some median level of education to send you off into the workforce. They're expecting you to also go to some form of specialized like schooling, whether that be vocational work or, a classic university or college, right? They expect you to do those things. And then you don't have to do those like the things people hate doing anyway, all the romantic like lessons, right? You don't have to go and do another set of chemistry and algebra and whatever. You've already done all that. You can just immediately
The
specialize.
beauty of being in the UK, like I grew up, well, not as a teen, but like
Yeah.
just left, but by the time you hit like the equivalent of maybe like a sophomore in high school here, like you're actually taking coursework towards
Trig.
what your interests
Right.
are. So, and obviously you have to take exams for those courses, in light of, especially if you're looking to go into university over there. But you're given the opportunity to kind of figure out like, oh, I'm good at this, or maybe I'm not so great at this. And that can help you kind of figure out like what you should be majoring. Here, you don't really fucking know what you want to do
Yeah.
until you're maybe 2021. And even then, that's not necessarily sure. And by then, you're probably like in your third year in college by that point. So, like,
when you get
it's
out
just
of college,
so standardized to.
You don't have like any guarantee that you're going to get something in your field, like no guarantee, and there's no information up front when you start your liberal arts major to even figure out what jobs you'd be able to apply for afterwards. Like there's no assistance with that at all from colleges, on top of tuition increase, book rental increase, dorm increase. Like it's all it's went up by hundreds of percent in the last decade, let alone multiple decades. So I find it crazy, greedy, and frankly just dumb that we're still even having to deal with it. So
yeah, if Joe Biden really wanted the economy that he's talking about, one of the first things he would do is this, and it would be a slam dunk because it's the easiest thing to do. You don't have to go through Congress. Do it yourself. You want to maintain the House and the Senate, forgive student loan debt. You have a much better chance. So pragmatically, it also makes sense. And if I may make a prediction, he's not going to do that. There's no way he's going to do it.
No way.
He would rather gaslight and tell you that the economy is booming and everything is back to normal than actually fix the economy and get us back to normal. So that's the world we live in.
I find it interesting that like places like Google and things like that now don't require degrees, right? They require you to understand a particular bit of knowledge that they have set in their paperwork, right? You have to be able to meet certain requirements. So even they're understanding the failures of the institutional education system, to where it's like they're not even looking at that anymore.
Here's the issue with this, and Rob, you know this well because you're in the medical field. Unfortunately, like if you want to be a lawyer, if you want to be a doctor, if you want to be a teacher, more likely than not, you need a license in order to do that. And the only way you can do that is getting those college credits for the most part. And I shared this with Sabi like a couple of weeks ago. It's like, because, and the idea is like, is college worth it? And for me as a teacher, I'm very mixed on it because the reality is, yeah, it's not worth it in the sense of you getting into debt. But on the other hand, like, as especially being a person of color, like we need that. People say, well, I don't want to sound like very cliche, but we need that representation, like in these fields, especially, so like, it's the idea, like if the elite are able to afford to go to college, and not have to worry about student debt and anything, or having these higher paying, well, I'm not saying higher paying jobs, but more like these levels of jobs versus like the working class going into some kind of vocation. Like, I'm not knocking anyone going into vocation work at all, but you will find that what could happen is the idea like the working class, which will usually maybe, people of color who are lower income, are working these vocational jobs. And then you're having like the elite class having all these white collar jobs. So it's like a two-tier system right there. So, and I mean, as a teacher, the majority of the teaching force, I think like 80% or over 80% right now is like white, whereas over 50% is of color. So it's like a lot of students of color is having white teachers, and not to say that's a bad thing, but they're not necessarily having a teacher who looks like them, who's able to understand them and their culture and all that kind of stuff, which I do believe is important. So, so I think especially as a person of color, like it's just to everyone's advantage that cancel student debt. And I mean, there is the conversations I hear on Twitter, well, that doesn't help. That doesn't, canceling student debt is just a Band-Aid. Yeah, let's also talk about colleges too, if you want to bring in that discussion of how they rob students, especially for these richer schools who are getting like endowments close to like small countries who can probably do a lot more for their students in order to give out more scholarships and so that more students have the opportunity to get the education that we need in order, to be a viable citizen in this country. So yeah, just Joe Biden, just cancel the debt. Stop.
Do it already.
It's one of the easiest three. It's one of the easiest three things he can do.
Yeah.
There's a handful of things, but it's one of the easy. If you want to win re-election, it'd be probably the easiest thing for him to do. That would immediately help in a demographic where he is very But I mean, particularly he does very poorly with young people. This would help young people, and he would actually force them to the ballot box if he did it. You're right. Legalization of marijuana is another one that would help, and it would, again, slam dunk. You want to win in the midterms, remove it as a Schedule I drug, effectively legalizing it nationwide. But again, nobody donates more to Joe Biden than Big Pharma. They're his number one donor, so he's not going to do that. And of course, he's in the pocket of all these other industries too, so he's not going to do it. He's just going to pretend and virtue signal.
Yeah. Speaking of people involved with the pharmaceutical lobbies, we'll just go to this slide. Former President Obama visits the White House for the first time in 5 years. Where's my? Why do I have too many things in my way? Hold on. This is the thing when you have like something looking at like 9 of your monitors. You're like, where's your mouse? There it is. Former President Barack Obama visited the White House Tuesday afternoon, marking the first time he's returned since leaving office 5 years ago. Obama's return was pegged to an event marking the 12th anniversary of the Affordable Care Act, a signature legislative achievement under his administration. At the event, President Biden unveiled expansions to that law. Thanks NPR for that tongue bath. It is good to be back in the White House, Obama said at the event with Biden and VP Harris. Nothing made me prouder than providing better health care and more protections to millions of people across the country. So when President Biden said he was not going to just celebrate the ACA, but announce actions that would make it better, I had to show up. So, go ahead.
Can I just make a comment very quick?
Yes.
I find it very interesting. Like, and no one's necessarily talking about this. Like, Obama's first visit to the White House is based to essentially protect his legacy, essentially, which is the ACA.
Yeah.
He didn't advocate for Biden for Build Back Better. He didn't advocate for Biden for a $50 million wage. Nothing related to Biden he showed up for. But when it comes to his name and his legacy,
he showed the fuck up.
Right.
Yep.
There's like he's out there, but like no advocacy at all for anything that Biden was pushing.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make that. I just wanted to say that because I don't think many people. Yeah, exactly. Indy said he advocated for breaking the MBI strike, and I had a discussion about this with DJ Joe Nice last year, like the idea that, what you can say what you want about George Floyd or whatever, that movement was pivotal, I think, especially among the Black community, not just here, but around the world, in the sense of every person watches the NBA.
Yeah.
And if they had stuck to their guns and kind of pushed ahead and kind of said, we will go on strike, the world would have taken notice. And so that's why you saw Barack Obama come out there to talk to what's his face? LeBron James.
That's it.
you know, to reconsider their stance and essentially shut up and dribble, you know, because they were afraid that, oh shit, like this can actually do something, you know? And so like, I hear a lot of people say like, the movement was nothing, the movement was nothing. It meant something, it could have been something, but then Obama squashed it.
Yeah.
So, you know, so it's like, and it's funny, especially given that Black Lives Matter happened under who? Obama. So yeah, it's just kind of funny, I think, especially in this, that Obama comes to Biden for something that he promoted when he was in office and nothing in relation to what Biden was trying to push. I think it's very interesting.
Yeah. So the White House announced a proposed removal of the quote unquote family glitch, which prevents millions of families from qualifying for subsidies on health insurance marketplaces, even if one family member can access an affordable individual plan through their job. The White House estimates that fix, which is finalized, would go into effect next January, could increase insurance affordability for around 1 million people and give 200,000 uninsured individuals access to coverage. The proposed rule would amount to the most significant administrative action to improve implementation of the ACA since its enactment, the White House said in a statement Tuesday. Of course they did. It's so good. Very good. Tremendous. The best people really, really think it's great. You know, they just don't have like the same speechwriter Trump did, you know? So Biden also signed an executive order directing agencies to continue doing everything in their power to make healthcare more accessible and affordable. What? Sorry. And affordable and make it easier to enroll in and keep coverage. What did he's like, that's essentially, he executive signed a strongly worded letter to the healthcare companies. Is that what he did?
Yeah, that's an executive order that does nothing.
That does literally nothing.
That sentence is, he literally tweeted that out verbatim, and it's so full of buzzwords. It's obviously you're doing nothing, which I'd like to point out. If you want to use the ACA to give people healthcare, you can use Section 1881 Alpha of the Social Security Act to give everybody healthcare right now, because COVID's not over yet. Now it's waning. It's going to become endemic. It already has. But according to a lot of the mainstream media, it's still raging on. You've seen them talking about it. Infections are going off the charts. Well, that's the case. It's still going on. Just give us healthcare. Why does it have to be, oh, well, all the poor people, if they want to get insured, they got to sign up for insurance, which we've already made too expensive, but to off-put the very expensive insurance, we're also going to give you a subsidy program, which you also have to sign up for to pay for the premiums and copays that were already too big. Like, why are we doing that? It's so much easier than that. And they, the answer is that they still want a whole bunch of money to go through, you know, all these health insurance companies and through big pharma. Yeah.
You know, because it couldn't have possibly have worked better in any other like modern, you know, first world country. It couldn't possibly be a better system than giving endless amounts of fucking money to people like fucking Shrekky, what's his fucking name? The one who's in jail now, right?
Martin Shkreli. Martin Shkreli.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Like that's
he was price gouging the tuberculosis medicine or whatever, like
right.
4,000.
And right. And insulin and like to me, it's just, it's,
you know, it's also funny.
Sickening.
Did you guys see that he was talking about, it's like, oh, well, we're going to cap copays at $35 a month and acting like that's a solution. It's like, that only applies to people that are already insured.
Yeah.
So they're like talking about capping how much you can be charged if you're already on an insurance program to get insulin. I mean, but also remember, not only in and of them, that in and of itself is not a solution, because of course there's, you know, tens of millions of people who don't have insurance, which those copays and premiums don't apply to. But beyond that, Biden also revoked Trump's insulin rule, which did this exact same thing. So like they're basically putting a Band-Aid on the problem that they created. Yeah. So it's like, again, they do this all the time too, where they're like, well, copays and premiums are going up in our current system, which I created. So we're going to fix that by putting subsidies that can help you pay for the copays and premiums, which is like, no, just get rid of the fucking copays and premiums. What are you doing here?
Yeah. Like, you know,
they don't need to exist.
Ridiculous. They really don't. They really don't. It should just be you walk in, you're sick, we'll fix you, and let's move on. Even the ACA, the original ACA was essentially the only thing it really did beneficial was apply some like restrictions on what insurances could already like deny you for, right? It was like
exactly.
They removed pre-existing conditions,
Pre-existing conditions,
deny you from that. Like there was definitely like you know some stuff there, but it was such a like a weak-minded thing for everyone to get super excited about, right? When we all wanted like a fucking actual single-payer healthcare of some kind, like you know.
Yeah, the Republicans are like, we don't want to offer you guys healthcare at all. You have to go through private systems, which is going to cost you $1,000 a month. And the Democrats are like, well, we want you to have affordable access to care. It's only going to be $900 a month if you go through this plan. So it's like, but the people that can't afford a $900 care plan and a $1,000 care plan, that's all the same people. You're not really helping a whole lot more people. And anyway, you can keep on going. So again, it's not really helping poor people. It's really just making it slightly more accessible to, again, more like upper middle class people.
And expanding the AC was a core pledge of Biden's presidential campaign, right? Which was essentially his like anti-Bernie, like, oh no, we're just going to expand the ACA. It was like, you know, like,
and before that, in the primaries, he said public option. In the primaries, when he was being pushed left, he said public option. As soon as it was down to him versus Trump, it was expand the
public option.
So he's just
Yep. So we knew that we had to keep strengthening this legislation, Biden said. The bottom line is that the ACA is stronger now than it's ever been. Biden allotted $34 billion. Shut up, phone. $34 billion for the ACA as part of the American Rescue Plan. His $1.9 trillion COVID relief package. The plan included increasing access to ACA subsidies, though that provision is set to expire at the end of 2022. So it was essentially he's just not, what do they call that? Means testing. It's just like they're taking some of the means testing off of it, right? And they're not even willing to say specifics on that, probably, you know. So
yeah, and I don't know how. I would love to see how easy it is to get access to those subsidies. Methinks the paperwork is probably draconian. They make it difficult on purpose to get the subsidies to pay for the copays and the premiums. Yeah. So again, it's a process that bogs down poor people's time, takes up time they don't have, rather than just making it easy. And by the way, Medicare for All would save us a ton of money. It would again be an economic boon because the taxes that they'd be taking out, the slightly higher tax rates to pay for Medicare for All would eliminate copays and premiums. So we'd actually end up saving like $5 trillion over a decade, according to the University of Massachusetts Amherst study. So again, you want to help the economy, Joe Biden? A pragmatic way to help the economy is to go to Medicare for All, and you could save the actual middle class and lower middle class taxpayers a lot of money.
So this is how marketplace costs and premiums will change if rescue plan subsidies expire. Cynthia Cox over at KFF, right? The American Rescue Plan Act, ARPA, passed earlier this year, temporarily expanded subsidies available in the ACA health insurance marketplaces. Building on the ACA's existing subsidies through the end of 2022, low-income families who are already eligible for financial assistance under the ACA are eligible for even more financial help to buy their own health insurance and pay for their copays and deductibles for coverage bought on healthcare.gov or their state's exchange. Additionally, middle-income families who are often priced out of ACA coverage before ARPA are now eligible for financial help with their monthly insurance premiums for the first time.
Again, it's like not expanding it to poor people; it's expanding it into middle-income families who are who didn't qualify for it before. So again, it's not really helping poor people.
Right. No. I mean, if anything, it's helping middle-class people, which is good, but it's like, now do the rest of them. Do everything else.
Right. Yeah, well, like, if he came out and said, well, oh, we're going to expand this to the millionaire class, like Pete Buttigieg said, I'd be like, yeah, well, good, but they already can afford health care.
Afford it. Right.
So, like, why are we not helping the people who need it the most, who literally can't get it? And that's, again, them taking big credit for something that is not terribly meaningful.
Yeah. So new additional subsidies were created under the ARPA as part of a larger pandemic relief strategy, but Dems have long favored similar strategies to reduce the cost of ACA plans to enrollees. And the state of California, along with a handful of other states, had already implemented its own state-funded subsidies to address premium affordability. One of the key criticisms of the ACA has been the high and rising premiums, particularly for working families with incomes over 4 times the poverty level. A little more than $50,000 for a single person, of just over $103,000 for a family of 4, who previously were not eligible. Really? Again?
Jordan wants you, bro.
Dude, he really does, bro. There's some putties and shit over in the park I gotta deal with. Who previously were not eligible for financial assistance. While the relief package did not directly address high cost sharing for these enrollees, larger premium subsidies can help them afford plans with lower deductibles. Now, there's a debate in Congress over whether to make these additional premium subsidies permanent or at least extend them for a longer time period. On the other hand, if Congress extends the ARPA subsidies or makes them permanent, federal costs would increase. On the other hand, if Congress does not extend these subsidies, premium payments will rise sharply for nearly all marketplace enrollees. Let me rewrite this sentence to, if they don't give us health care, people will die.
Yeah, right.
Like,
and again, they even admit in that previous slide, this is built into the ACA, which they're taking credit for, right? So they're saying like the ACA is amazing. It's, as you said, Obama's legacy. They tout it as being great when the only reason the premiums are going up is because they designed the ACA to be a big pile of shit.
Yeah.
So they're taking credit for only minimally solving a problem that they themselves created with something that they're now proud of, quote unquote.
Yeah. So how marketplace costs and I already fucking read that. Jesus. The ARPA subsidies are extended. Federal costs will rise. The Congressional Budget Office and Joint Committee on Taxation originally estimated that the additional temporary subsidies provided under the ARPA would increase federal deficits by $34.2 billion. Most of that cost is concentrated in the first couple of years since the additional subsidies expire at the end of 2022. Through CBO expected some lingering cost as some subsidized people would remain enrolled for a time, even after the ARPA subsidy enhancement ends. The DOH and Human Services reports that ARPA subsidies for existing consumers cost $537 million per month. It is likely these costs could rise next year as more people take up coverage during open enrollment. If subsidies expire, premium payments could double for millions of marketplace enrollees. According to HHS, the 8 million marketplace enrollees who signed up before the ARPA subsidies were enacted are now paying $68 per month after accounting for an average monthly premium savings due to the ARPA of $67. Without the ARPA subsidies, premiums would double on average for these enrollees, and they would pay an average of $800 per year more if enrolled for the full year. Premiums or deductibles would increase most steeply for the lowest income enrollees. People with incomes between 1 and 1.5 times the poverty level currently represent 42% of enrollees. And with the ARPA subsidies now paying nothing or next to nothing for their monthly premium before the ARPA, these individuals had to contribute more than 2% of their income towards the benchmark silver plan premium. These lowest income enrollees would therefore see the steepest percent increase if ARPA subsidies expire. Middle income individuals and families also buy coverage in the marketplace when they don't have access to job-based group plan coverage. These included people who work for small businesses that don't offer group health benefits. Gig and other self-employed workers are people who retire easily or early before the age of Medicare eligibility. We estimate that 3.7 million people, most with incomes between 4 and 6 times poverty level, gain subsidy eligibility with ARPA. Under the ARPA, the vast majority of people buying their own health insurance coverage can be sheltered from premium increases by taking advantage of the subsidies offered in the ACA marketplace. These subsidies expire, though. Middle and upper middle income people will lose subsidy eligibility, will not only have to make up the difference in the subsidy, they'll also be on the hook for any increase in the sticker price of the premium between now and January 1st. Without the subsidy, a 60-year-old's health insurance premium currently averages more than $11,000 per year. That 60-year-old had an income just above $51,000, over 4 times the poverty level. Their ARPA subsidies cover more than half of their monthly cost. Without the ARPA, their premium would increase 165%.
Can I talk about something, because it mentions the poverty level? So
yes,
if I'm doing quick math, that's about $12,000 a year.
Yeah.
like I lived on that. Like out of college, I did AmeriCorps, so like we got shit. So like, so that for me, take home, like fortunately I had, had free housing and I had free health insurance, but like I had to take home like about $800 a month, like 10 months of the year. So like, so it's like, like, so the idea, and then even just the idea, like talking about four to six times higher than the poverty level. That's what 4 times is about 50. Like living in DC, that's nothing. Like housing is expensive, food is expensive. Everything now is a way more expensive. And like, if I wasn't working and like, through my union / district, like they're paying like 80%, of my healthcare, like I'm not sure how I'll be able to pay, out of pocket, like out insurance out of pocket. So, so I think just the idea that we're talking, that it's mentioning, like, it's almost kind of saying like, person making 50,000 almost kind of like is a good thing. It's not, because it's like, that's not necessarily a livable wage anymore, especially like if you live in a blue state, and especially if you live along the coast. So yeah, it's just, it's just a mess. But basically all of this to say is we'll give you enough that you don't have a choice to enter in the marketplace, and then we'll take it away and we'll want to force you to pay for it. Basically is what Kaiser is saying.
Yeah, and in that example they just gave, they said the 60-year-old person makes $51,000 a year, and they can look at about $11,000 in premiums. That's 1/5 of what that person makes. And what they're saying is, now what we're going to do is make this person eligible to cut that 11,000 down to about 5,500, about half. 5,500. That's still over 10% of what that person makes. Right. And then they say, well, then the other option is that because we designed the ACA so poorly, it's going to go up 165%. So would you rather pay, 165% of 11,000 is 16,000 in a year, or would you rather have 6,000? Pick your one. And again, it goes back to what I said. That's still unaffordable. Like you might as well be like 10% versus 30% of what you make. You still should never, ever have to spend 10% of what you make on your health insurance. That's an enormous amount of what people take home. There's so many other things to have to pay for. And then last point, if it turns out that this is all, and I don't know if this is true or not, but if it's all calculated based on what the poverty line is, like the eligibility, Joe Biden can again unilaterally, I don't think it's executive order, but I might be wrong, but I read this on Lee Camp's website. He can unilaterally change the way that the poverty line is calculated. And because it's an old way that we calculate it, the poverty line is way, way dated, is antiquated. It's far lower than it should be. So if it turns out that that's really the way that this is all, the criteria is calculated, he could change by himself the way we calculate poverty, and therefore change the outcome of the ACA if he wanted to that way. But he's not going to do that either, because again, if you change the way that poverty is calculated and you suddenly say that poverty includes everybody that makes 40,000 a year or less versus everybody who makes 12,000 a year or less, you would include a whole bunch of people who make $40,000 in social safety net programs, which they are now excluded from because they technically make too much.
Right.
Yeah.
So you could change a lot simply by doing that, Joe Biden, if you want to go this route, but he's not going to do that either.
Right. The fact that like you're considered out of poverty, quote unquote, if you like makes, let's say 15 as a single person.
It's like, dude, that's beyond poverty. Like you're living on dollar store food. I've been there before too.
Right. It's like, which when people were talking about the child tax credit, like they were tuning it like, oh yeah, people were, you're going to get like how many children out of poverty, like based on what? Based on the fact that like a family of 4 like is making like $30,000 a year, and that may, I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but that may be considered out of poverty. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, I think just the way that we look at, and again, this is something that the squad should be saying, you know, which they're not, you know, like, because the actual poverty lines are bogus to begin with, but no one's talking about that. And instead it's like this talking point of like, you know, getting people out of poverty, but it's the idea of like, you can be poor making 50K a year, you know, especially like as a student, you know, or you're a grad student coming out with debt, you know. And so I think it's just the idea that we need to rethink, as Rob was saying, you know, just our poverty guidelines of what that should entail, but no one is talking about that at all.
Well, and the other reason they're probably even talking about it is because the ARPA enhancements are set to expire at the end of 2022. Open enrollment for those begins on November 1st, 1 week before the midterm election is held. Right. So you know, it's going to be vote Democrats or you're going to lose your health care. Like, even though you still don't have health care. Like, you know, but that's going to be the fear mongering. But yeah, I mean, standard political shit as always. If we could just have healthcare, please, that would be nice. Thank you. What else we got on the board for today? Survey says more book bans sought in 2021 than any other point in the past 20 years. Group says this is from Truth Out. Chris Walker, right? So findings from a library organization published on Monday showcase that efforts from right-wing groups, quote unquote, and parents across the country to restrict access to books represent the highest number of challenges to book titles since the year 2000. According to the ALA, the American Library Association, which has been tracking such challenges for over 20 years, more than 700 challenges were made in 2021. These efforts to ban books were directed towards ones that were written by or depict the lives of Black or LGBTQ individuals. ALA's Office for Intellectual Freedom tracked 729 challenges to library, school, and university materials and services in 2021, resulting in more than 1,597 individual book challenge or removals, the organization said in a press release published on Monday. So, you know, I would love if we could also find when the left-wingers do this, because I'm sure they do. You know,
they just kind of like what we were talking about before the show is that right-wingers and left-wingers, particularly like the elites, they're all for censorship of books and media. It's just a matter of what they choose to target. The right-wingers tend to be more like, oh, you know, they want to get rid of books written by Black people that portray the difficulties of being a Black person in the United States, or LGBTQ writers, whereas the neoliberals are more like, well, we don't want anybody that uses too harsh a language or that talks about revolutions or that has too much violence in it. You know, you're never going to see a bunch of the right wingers being angry about a book being too violent, but you'll see the neoliberals do that all the time with film and books as well. So it's just a matter of what they're censoring. And this is why I'm doing my Pay It Forward project Bookworm on my, you know, in my spare time, is because this is only going to get worse. With both movies and film in this country. It doesn't matter who's at the helm, Trump, Biden, as long as the elites in their current stranglehold on media exist, they're going to use their troll farms, they're going to use their apparatus to censor things like this. And that's just something we have to combat.
So ALA President Patricia Patty Wong said in a statement that parents should involve themselves in what books their children decide or want to read, but restricting other parents' rights to do the same can harm children. We support individual parents' choices concerning their child's reading and believe that parents should not have those choices dictated by others, Wong said. Young people need to have access to a variety of books from which they can learn about different perspectives. Libraries remain ready to do what we always have, make knowledge and ideas available so people are free to choose what to read, Wong added. The vast majority of Americans oppose book bans. The ALA conducted a poll published last month demonstrating that 71% of U.S. voters opposed efforts to remove books from schools. libraries, or universities. That includes 70% of Republican respondents who agreed that book bans are harmful, the poll found. So, in spite of that, however, there have been a large and vocal push by conservative groups and parents promoted by Republican lawmakers to restrict access to books they deem objectionable. The push to politicize Black and LGBTQ people's existence is evidence of growing fascism on the right. Importantly, those efforts have been opposed by many librarians throughout the country. Some have ignored requests from lawmakers to compile titles for them that could contain material that they object to, limiting these politicians' abilities to use such books to make political grandstanding gestures that are meant to appeal to bigoted constituents. Students have also opposed attempts to ban them from reading books that the far right wants banned. In some Texas schools, for instance, students have created book clubs that specifically highlight banned titles. Texan students have noted the hypocrisy of trying to ban books, as some of the reasons given for banning books about Black or LGBTQ people aren't also applied to books with white or heterosexual characters. Book titles with heterosexual scenes, heterosexual ideas were permissible, but the second something turns slightly queer, slightly homosexual, it discomforts them. One student, Megan Sadeghi, a senior at a high school outside of Houston, said to the Texas Tribune in early March, "Why do we have to remove books about Black people and Asian Americans simply for the sake of white people's comfort?" Sadeghi added. So definitely some id poll stuff going on here, but I just thought go ahead.
I love that the students are doing that, by the way. That's exactly what I'm doing with my project, where I collect books from all of the like Goodwills and Habitat for Humanity, and I'll buy them used online. Right. Books that have traditionally been censored, but also books that I think are going to get censored. And then I write in the inside of the title page right there, this is not a book that should ever end up on a bookshelf. After you've read it, pass it on to somebody and spread it all over the place. When I see that there's a piece of media or entertainment that's being censored, my first impulse is always to go out there and watch it or read it to see why the establishment is trying to get rid of it. And you see that with old books, again, written by Black authors or LGBTQ authors. But in the future, and I talked to you about this, Reef, they started taking V for Vendetta, which is one of my favorite graphic novels, off of the bookshelves. Mouse, which is again deals with Nazis, has been censored as well. Why the Last Man, and a lot of these are, in fact, they're not being taken down by just right wingers, as that Truth Out article says. They're being taken down by liberals they don't like that they're revolutionary minded, and that's why V for Vendetta is a dangerous book to some people. It has nothing to do with any homosexuality or racist undertones or exposing even white supremacy. It's all about, it's like a template for revolution. So they want it taken down. Same reason why for a while there, the ending of Fight Club was censored in China. There's a reason that they're doing that. So what I've done is, in my spare time, I have a buddy that has a movie theater in downtown Peoria. So every Friday we show censorable movies, and we have people come over and hang out and watch the movies. And I hand out books for free that I find that are censorable books. So I've got a ton of them. We have to fight censorship somehow, because this is like book burning. Back in the day, they burned books because the internet didn't exist. But now all of this stuff, what they want to do is essentially book burning by removing it not only from the shelves, but also removing it from the internet and censoring it. It's essentially the same function. And that's what we've got. And we have in this country, in fact, the Democrats are in charge, and this is happening. Right. So, it's coming from both parties. I don't want to, not say that the right wingers don't do the same thing. They do, but they do it for different reasons. And they both kind of types of the neo-libs versus the right wingers. They both want to censor different things. How about we just say no more cancel culture? Let people say what they want to say, and let's not become Nazi Germany. People should be able to read whatever they want. But if you don't want to read the book, don't read the book. They haven't
read Fahrenheit 451 because it was banned. Exactly. They don't know that.
Exactly. That's one of the books I have.
Right. I have 2 copies. Anything by Steinbeck, usually gets pulled too. Like, especially Grapes of Wrath was on the constant ban stuff for a minute.
Was it? I have that copy. I might add that to the stack.
Like, there's There's tons of those books that are out there that people. Here's what I feel like should be done, and I felt that way for a minute. You know, if you go into any hotel room or motel room, whether you paid hourly or by day, I'll let you guys decide which one you did. You know, if you just open that drawer, what's in there?
Bible.
Right. All the time. I would love for people to start leaving, you know, like put the manifesto in there, you know,
Dude, that's a good idea.
like put
Start
whatever in
recommending
there.
that.
Like, you know, so like regardless of what, you know, I think getting those kind of books and information out there is, you know, a big deal, right? You should take a camera next time you do one of those film nights. That would be fun.
Yeah, I did
You know?
last time. It was just a little too dark. We watched Fight Club last week, and then
Yeah.
this week we've got Clockwork Orange and Doctor Strangelove. So we're doing 2 Kubricks.
Those will be good.
That ought to be fun. Yeah, that's going to be Friday at 7:30 in downtown Peoria. If you guys want to come hang out
Yeah.
with me. I'll do an episode about it tomorrow on my show.
Nice. Sounds good. This is our last story for the night. I feel like we'll have an interesting discussion about it. So Amazon workers at over 50 buildings have contacted the union about organizing. Our friend Chris Smalls, right, doing the work here. After Amazon workers successfully unionized at a warehouse in Staten Island in New York, a flood of Amazon workers across the country contacted the union about organizing their own workplaces, according to the union's president. Amazon Labor Union, the ALU leader Christian Smalls, wrote on Twitter on Tuesday that workers at over 50 locations have contacted the union since their win on Friday. So workers at the JFK 8 warehouse in Staten Island voted in favor of unionizing with a 55% yes vote. The union won by over 500 votes with a vote count of 2,654 to 2,131. Over 8,000 employees work at that warehouse. It was a stunning win for the ALU, an independent union that was formed last year with no affiliation to a major organization. Small said it was the leadership of the union's organizing team that brought them the victory, and sarcastically thanked Amazon CEO Jeff Bezos for the win. We want to thank Jeff Bezos for going to space, because when he was up there, we was signing people up, Smalls said in a speech after the victory. So the ALU is also in the process of organizing LDJ5, a second warehouse in New York. About 15,000 employees work there. Those workers will soon get their own union election after filing for one in February. So when workers in Bessemer, Alabama began unionizing with the retail warehouse and department store union, the RWDSU similarly said that over 1,000 workers had contacted the union about organizing last year. Bessemer workers' first attempt at unionizing failed. The National Labor Relations Board ordered a second union election for the warehouse because Amazon illegally interfered with the first campaign. The Labor Board said the result of the second election, which the NLRB began counting last week, were too close to call on Friday. The final result will come down to roughly 400 challenge ballots, the eligibility of which will be determined by the NLRB in the coming weeks. However, the fact that workers are eager to contact the union is an indication that the union campaign may spread to Amazon warehouses and workplaces across the country, especially now that workers in New York have shown that it can be done despite aggressive union busting from the company. As the labor movement undergoes a resurgence, public support for unions is growing. A Gallup poll found last year the support for labor unions in the U.S. is at 65%, the highest point since 1965. Still, the path ahead for the ALU may be difficult, as labor reporter Stephen Greenhouse noted in The Atlantic. ALU's independent status is part of its strength, but could also be a weakness if the union isn't able to gather enough resources and infrastructure to be able to organize other warehouses. You gotta do it with us. You gotta do it with us. You can't do it on your own. You gotta do it with us. God, get your mind right, people. Speaking of doing stuff with us,
we got the juggler. We went for the juggler, and we went for the top dog.
This moment, damn.
Man, I ain't gonna cry right now. I only wanted to do the right thing and speak up for the workers behind me.
speaking up for workers and winning. This is a historic labor victory. The news breaking today, a landmark vote. This is at an Amazon warehouse in New York to form a union. It's the first of its kind. Amazon is the second largest employer in America. Over 1 million people work at warehouses and around the Amazon
Do I have this
delivery
set
process
to the right speed? So
all
we don't have
throughout the
to
country.
know.
The New York
Yeah,
Times
let me
says this
speed
is one
up
of the biggest
MSNBC
victories
for
for
everyone.
organized labor in a generation. It all started here in Staten Island, New York. It comes after there were many setbacks and a whole different effort to unionize an Amazon warehouse down in Alabama.
So I just wanted people to kind of notice what's going on in their pictures behind here. Like, why did they get the picture with this guy's tum-tum out? You know, like, I don't know why, you know, but I was talking about it with Colin, and we were noting the kind of, I feel like the almost dog whistling like imagery they're trying to pull off there, you know, like just to scare those you know, wine moms at home. You know, you can't have.
We talked about this last night when we were prepping, and this is probably not going to be a popular take, but I'm going to say it anyway. But Reef, you mentioned it, so
yeah,
and I'm
I'll
more
take
than
blame
comfortable
for
to
it.
say it. I'll take the blame for it. Like, I don't care. But I feel like, as you said, this is kind of a low-key dog whistle. You know, just the way that they're choosing now. To be fair to Chris, you know, and we know Chris, you know, obviously, like, he looks a certain way, but I think if you're around any independent media channel for any point in time, you know who Chris Smalls is, and you know how articulate he is, and you know how passionate he is, you know, and he is very serious toward this work. Like, mainstream media does not know who he is, not in that way, other than like when he got fired from Amazon 2 years ago. And what people will remember him for is that Bezos basically called him, you know, stupid, basically, you know. So that's what people remember him for. Now, cut to 2 years later, you know, obviously with this, you know, people are going to associate, you know, like probably what Bezos said about him then to what they're seeing here, you know, like he's dressed, you know, more street, you know, whatever else. He like, you know, he's not like, well, like he speaks in that certain cadence, you know, and I think especially, you know, for like a white suburb mom or whoever, this can be viewed as threatening. You know,
I mean,
like
it's like
this is the association of
silent
what
fear
the
mongering.
working class looks like, you know, and that's not necessarily the case, but I think the idea that, you know, CNBC, you know, this kind of reminds me of when AOC won, you know, against Joe Crowley. Like, no one knew who AOC was prior to, but then she won, so they were like, oh damn, we have to talk about this now, you know. So like now it's like, Chris Paul's got this major victory, you know, oh damn, you know, we have to talk about him now. And I feel like I think basically the theme of tonight is I blame the squad in a lot of ways, because the fact that AOC kind of jumped on the gun, you know, just shy of the victory after she did nothing to, you know, like promote Amazon or anyone in the squad promote what Chris Moss was doing, you know, even at minimum, like a tweet, you know, over the last couple of years, you know, would have helped to kind of elevate his name, to kind of elevate the movement. But they're only jumping on it now just to kind of take credit for it. And shout out to Chris, who basically calling them out and basically saying, you know, you get no credit for this. Like, the people got credit for this. So, but I feel they could have done a lot more to bring his name up in the mainstream so that people will have a better viewing of him rather than what they might see and make an assumption, like based on what he looks like and how he speaks, you know, like that he might be a bug.
I think
So-
if they're doing that, it's going to backfire hardcore. I think he's a perfect figurehead for a movement like this, because most people who work at Amazon who believe that they should be treated better they work at Amazon, so they're working poor people. They resonate with people like Chris Smalls. It's going to
Absolutely.
backfire, because the only people that think Chris is a thug are the people that don't work at Amazon, that are
Right.
at home because they're
Yeah.
rich as fuck. So at the end, this works out, I think, much more to the benefit of future union drives, because the future union drives should absolutely be led by people who have worked there before, who in fact are poor people.
Poor people.
Because that's who people want to follow. That's who I want to follow. If somebody showed up in a tuxedo and tried to get me on board for joining a union for Amazon, I'd be like, what the fuck do you know about it? You don't work here. You've never worked here. You never, judging by your clothes, you've never worked anything like this. So in a way, I think if they're trying to, in tongue-in-cheek, demonize Chris, it's
Right.
only going to backfire and make him more like a cult legend, which is going to work very much
into this interview, and keep that bit of imagery in mind. You were talking about, people in suits and whatnot, right?
When workers have to make these decisions, there's many pressures on it, which I've covered. People have the right to decide to join. They have the right not to join. That's how it's supposed to be. Did you find that this was a debate at the warehouse that was on the level, or do you think when workers have to make these decisions, there's many pressures on it, which I've covered. People have the right to decide to join. They have the right not to join. That's how it's supposed to be.
That phrasing alone.
Did you find that this was a debate at the warehouse that was on the level, or do you think Amazon, and thus effectively Jeff Bezos, if we're going to talk
Do you want to speak on that, Reef?
were funding and interfering
But
in a way
just
that
the
made it
phrasing
not?
of you could join. You don't have to join, but you can, but you don't have to. It's just such a dumb anti-union
it's the same as when you call right to work laws. They're not right to work laws. It's
the right to be
anti-union
fired.
laws. Exactly right. So he's trying to frame it, and of course he says, "Oh, well, of course you can or you can't." He wants to stay neutral, because all of these mainstream media pundits, they don't want unions because they're rich people, and rich people make more money when you can't get unionized. And he doesn't understand that, when you work at Amazon, if you can educate the people into understanding that unionizing at Amazon can save your life in a way, and it can really help your benefits, help you from not having to die on the job because you're working 17 hours in a row, or you're not having to pee in, bottles and poop in bags and stuff like that. He doesn't understand that joining a union solves all of that. But rich people won't phrase it that way because they benefit from there not being unions. So he's just, in a way, very slightly more clever in his anti-union propaganda than somebody on Fox News like Stuart Varney would be.
Yeah.
Right.
A free and open debate.
Of course, it wasn't fair. Amazon spends millions of dollars. There's already been reports that came out of how much money they spent on us, and that's just the surface level. I can guarantee they spend a lot more money than that. They lost a lot of money union busting against us, and of course, it starts from the top. Jeff Bezos himself, and it trickles down into these warehouses that are trying to unionize. So we definitely had our fair share. As you mentioned, I was arrested a few weeks ago, along with two organizers. One of them been arrested twice, in just 3 months during our campaign. Just to tell you the lengths of what they're going to stop us from trying to get to this point. So the odds that we defeated, to be able to get to this point and actually be victorious, this is the best feeling in the world.
So, I mean, it's just him talking about how Amazon screwed him over on that, and how they continue to screw things over there. I felt that was definitely important part of that interview to talk about.
It would have been interesting to hear what Robert Reich had to say, because one of the things about Reich is he was Secretary of Labor under Clinton. He is kind of pseudo lefty, but he was definitely one of the, you have to vote for Biden. Right. Otherwise, the end of the world is coming. Now, here's the interesting why I want to hear what he has to say on something like this, because methinks he'll go, well, this is great. I love that this union drive was successful. It makes me very happy. But what he won't say is the guy that he told you to vote for, Joe Biden, in fact, did not overrule the parliamentarian when she removed the PRO Act from the Build Back Better plan. So Joe Biden, even though he said he was pro-union on the campaign trail, and Reich definitely was cheerleading for Biden, methinks he's not going to call Biden out for effectively not using his power to add the PRO Act into legislation. So that needs to be called out as well. The people did this. The Democrats had nothing to do with it. Not AOC, not Biden. All of them did absolutely zero. And it would have been interesting to see if Reich decided to actually give the Democrats some credit, or if he would mention Joe Biden doing that. Methinks he would not.
No, I purposefully skipped Reich's part of this interview for a couple of reasons. Mainly because all he said was, this is a very good win, very big, very good. We'd like to see many more, and that was pretty much it.
And you know what would have made it a lot easier? The PRO Act, which Joe Biden said he was for, and you said to elect Joe Biden, and you guys are both like rhetorically on board for unions, but why is no one talking about how Joe Biden actively stopped union formation by allowing the parliamentarian to get rid of that provision?
But we definitely noticed, you can't have Smalls on just by himself. You got to bring some Clintonite to add validity to, and in some cases, you've now alluded to the fact that Reich had anything to do with this at all, which he did not. Both of those things you were just trying to shoehorn, past Clintonite, right? Who, sheepdogs plenty into the party, right? It's just an interesting, you got to put him with the suited white guy so that everyone feels okay talking to Smalls,
Yeah, and they'll say that this is a great victory and it happened under Democratic rule without telling you the fact that the Democrats actively made this as difficult as possible for it to happen. And they'll leave that second part out. And that's what's frustrating to me, because it's like, these people want you to vote blue no matter who, because it's, there was unions formed under Biden, without telling you with that asterisk that actually Biden made it much more difficult to form unions.
Yeah. Yeah. So he goes on in this interview to talk about.
I do want to ask you, Christian, what do you think people need to know about what goes into these warehouses in the Amazon delivery system? Because statistically, most people watching this have probably used Amazon or gotten a delivery, and people appreciate the aspects of the service and the price. What do you want people to know about what goes into that, and what would it cost to take, in your view, better care of the people doing the work?
Yeah, I've never blamed the customer. The customers definitely don't know what it entails with these jobs. So let me break it down. These warehouses are massive. They're almost 1 million square feet, if not over. They're 14 NFL football fields. I used to tell my new hires, if you have a gym membership, you have to cancel it, because you're doing 10 to 12 hours of calisthenics. Your break is only 30 minutes. You're being tracked for every single second that you're not scanning an item. You have to prepare yourself mentally really over more the physical aspect, because you have to change your whole lifestyle when you work for this company. You lose family time, you lose sleep. Your commute is 2.5 hours, 3 hours, depending on where you live, what borough you're coming from. I know I lived in New Jersey, working in Staten Island, so my commute was 3 hours each way on top of a 12-hour work shift, and you're rinsing and repeating. So we're so disconnected from society. All we know is Amazon. And, when customers support this company, they got to understand our voices matter too. And we were deemed essential workers. We weren't asked. Our job title, high school diploma and a GED. It didn't say work in the middle of a deadly pandemic. Yeah. And, that led me to walk out, and then ultimately led me to lead this union drive. And I'm happy that we were able to, once again, be successful.
Yep. So good for Smalls.
I do want to ask.
Nope. Gotta go to the next slide. So I just wanted to, this is almost an open letter to Christian. If you're out there listening, if anyone sends this to you, right, just keep in mind who has been supporting you. Jimmy's been giving Christian Smalls a platform to organize a union at Amazon since May of last year, 2020, not even last year. So, and I wanted to keep in mind the parallels that we're seeing here as well as here. So, to me, this is a big opportunity for Mr. Smalls, who they are already trying to push towards running for office. Why would you give up the one bit of power you've actually been able to actually grant against one of the biggest, like, capitalist empires that has ever fucking been here with Amazon, right? You want him to stop all that to go kiss babies, to try to, like, no, your job is to do the fucking legal part of it. Let him fight with the company to get what he wants, you know, and what the workers want. But I just wanted to voice those parallels, and luckily, you know, if Smalls doesn't want to become this person, right, who doesn't want to become what this person grew up to be, right, you know, which hopefully, based off, you know, his statements against AOC, right, and how she wasn't there for this, you know, I know, you know, this is way back, like, around the same time he went on Jimmy, right, to say that, you know, he wants to thank AOC, that he received his statement to the people at our march on Jeff Bezos's rally. So at one point, you know, their views aligned, right? At least here. I just hope he doesn't get pulled into that fold in any way. You know, he's on MSNBC with Robert Reich. He's on, you know, I feel, you know, that yes, those are all great places to get your message out, and you should go on them. Absolutely. But there's a big but here. You need to also continue to come down to these little networks and the indie places and actually actively communicate with us, whether that's in public, on camera, or in DMs, so that we actually know what's going on, what's actually being fought for, and how we can help actually do work. You know, I
think Chris is a different beast than that. So I don't think he's necessarily in it for the clout, so to speak. I think he's really in it generally for, and I think especially since, you know, if anything, he has a bone to pick, you know, with Amazon, given how they treated him and how they've treated, you know, probably his colleagues as well. So I think the difference is with Chris, like, he actually lived the experience. You know, people like AOC has had a very, not to say like, you know, she didn't struggle, but she had more privilege and opportunity than probably Chris ever had. So I think given that, I think it makes all the difference in the world. And I think Chris, I'm sure, is well aware of, if anything, like, he's in danger, basically, because now, like, he has power, you know, but the power is coming from the people versus the power that could be given to him, you know, from the establishment. So I think Chris is well aware of that. So I think he definitely needs to be kind of careful moving in these streets, basically. Yeah. But I don't think, and I'm very cynical, just basically in my views, but I'm going to be very positive here. I don't think Chris will take the bait, so to speak. You know, and as far as anything with the establishment will offer him or anything. I think given what he has said, you know, I think just recently, again, regarding to AOC, you know, just being like, you didn't do shit, you know, like, I think, like, I think he has a good head on his shoulders. So I think he's well aware of the danger and
I know he's friends, you know,
the
with
hypocrisy that exists.
RBN and Jimmy and whatever. You know, I can't wait to see you on those shows coming soon. Friends of Indie Left is always open to you, Mr. Smalls, as well as this show. We'd love to have you on to talk about what happens going forward. But, you know, I just feel like communication is going to be key with the people who actually give a shit. So, you know, just make sure you know who your allies are. That's all I'm saying. Yep. You know,
they're opening up an Amazon factory in Pekin, which is just south of where I live, and it hasn't opened. It's opening later on this year, and you better believe when they open up, one of the first people I'm going to be reaching out to is Mr. Smalls, because I'm going to be trying to emulate what he did here, and I'll try to do my best there to do the same thing he just did.
So, you know, I think it's massively important, and it's one of the only ways we have right now of affecting change in any meaningful way. You know, so I massive respect to what Smalls had to go through and deal with and still deals with. They tried to arrest him. They tried, you know, they've done everything in the book to try to shut these actions down because they're worried about it. And if they're worried about it, that's a good thing, you know?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that's it for today. I think that's all I had. So, but, oh, I have one more story for you, Colin, if you wanted to talk about it. I had to pull it up, but we don't have to. It's the stuff that happened in DC. Did you hear anything more about that?
I haven't heard anything about that. Maybe that's something with more information we can share next week.
Yep. Cool.
But I think it might be still a little fresh to kind of talk about right now. So
No worries. You know, just wanted to make sure. We're already at 10:30 anyway, so. But anyway, it's been great. You know, loved everyone in chat. Blue Moon Red Wine's here. You know, Colin is in the chat. What's up, Colin? How you doing down there? You know, the little mini Colin down there. Ricky's been here. Human Love Solidarity. March for Medicare for All. Save the date for July 30th. They're doing something.
We need to have him on.
Yep. We can do that. You know, Indy Left's here. Go check his stuff out. You know, he's been tweeting from the INN accounts. And yeah, if you're not subbed to this already, or, you know, whatever, you know, I know a lot of people are subbed to each individual's channel, but make sure you give this a sub. We just had Tara do her stream on here as well. So if anyone missed that, you should go back and check that. That was really good. You know, otherwise,
yeah.
What do you got coming up, Colin?
Yeah, just very quick. Yeah, just definitely make sure to subscribe. You know, obviously, you know, Rob is here. Thank you, Rob, for joining us tonight. Really appreciate talking to you. But I think also we want this to be about you guys. So hopefully as we get bigger, like right now, Reef and I are just choosing the news stories that we kind of resonate with, but we want this to be more of your network. So like, if you have any ideas of any news, especially like on the local level, like wherever you are that you want to share, please let us know, and we definitely will want to report out on those too. So we want to make this about you guys as much as we want to deliver news from our perspective, and then also news that we care about as well. And yeah, definitely recommend guests that we like to try and reach out to that can also be a part of this
next Wednesday. I hope to bring Chris and Angel on together. That should be a good time. And then the Wednesday after that, Tara and hopefully Lucy, if her schedule allows. That should be good. And whoever, you know, Tara wants to bring as a guest, or if any of those people have guests they want to talk about for a story, they'll be on with those too. So keep an eye on the INN Twitters. You can find all our links at our linktree, indienews.network, right? Find those Twitters. You'll also find all the members' link trees and Twitters and all that stuff. If you there should be like a link in the first link tree to that link tree. But otherwise, down below, Colin's link tree is down there with all his stuff. I have Rob's Patreon and Twitter down in the description as well, so go give him a follow if you haven't already. Next week, this Friday, I'm having Kit and Warren, you've seen him in chat as the Extra Bola and War Deer guy, and Jesse Chat. So that should be a good time for Reefer After Dark. That's 10 Eastern. That's going to be fun. We'll see how much, you know, whiskey we get into Kit. You know, that should be a good time. But otherwise, I think that's it for us today. We still have not yet made a closer, you know, and we might have to ask people what INN's closer is going to be, you know. That's going to have to be a thing, because I can't always just be like, you know, bye guys, and then in this, like, I can't, you know, we gotta have some like cookie crumbling, you know, something. We gotta figure it out. You know?
Let us know in the comments what our closeout should be for this.
Yeah.
So,
but anyways, on that note, bye everybody. Bye.
yeah.